Hi, welcome to this information session about the Pathfinder Challenge Towards Cement and Concrete as a Carbon Sink. This challenge is part of the Work Programme 2024 of the European Innovation Council, or EIC. My name is Franc Mouwen. I'm the EIC Programme Manager for Architecture, Engineering and Construction. This information session allows for a little bit more background to the challenge, but text reference as contained in the work program will always be the reference document. If you look at the construction sector is one of the largest sectors in Europe, also in the world. And the sector faces a couple of major challenges, in particular regarding the decarbonization of the sector. Decarbonization can be embedded carbon and operational carbon. If we look at the embedded carbon contribution, it is about 8% of the total CO2 emissions are associated with that. And this is mainly because of the CO2 emissions of the cement and concrete value chains. This picture shows decarbonization pathway towards net zero by 2050, which is the target also of the European Green Deal. If you look at the stack of different solutions to achieve those net zero targets, you would see that the top green in the stack, it is about efficiency in design and construction. This really was the topic area of the challenge of last year, 2023 EIC work program. So this is evolving around designing structures more efficiently, and in this way reducing the need for materials and thus reducing the emissions. If you look at the three colors below that, so in the second red box, you would see this is targeting towards efficiency in concrete production, savings in cement and biners, and savings in clinker production. And this is really roughly the target of the challenge of 2024 we are now discussing in this information session. Another view on the topic, this is a picture from the Rocky Mountains Institute. I think it's helpful because it gives a nice overview of the innovation landscape of the cement and concrete and clinker supply chain. So indeed, they call it the 3C framework of clinker, cement and concrete. You will see where the CO2 is mainly emitted. It's in the clinker production, with some other percentages in cement and concrete production. And in the innovation landscape, you see the different topic areas. For example, alternative raw materials, low carbon clinker production, carbon capture, alternative SCMs, alternative cements, concrete production and end-use efficiency, and mineralization. Those topic areas we will also see coming back in the challenge objectives of this Pathfinder Challenge. If you look at the topic area from, again, a different view, let's say the patent landscape, and this is indicative, you will see the following results. This is coming from a source, Chatham House. It's a couple of years old, but I think the message is still more or less the same today. And you would see that the patent landscape is really dominated by China, and then the country is depicted in the top left image. You would see that the different main topic areas and how the distribution of those countries is in terms of SCMs, chemical admixtures, alternative clinker cements, and geopolymers and alkali activated binders. And on the right hand side, I think it's interesting to review in more detail those different topic areas that attract patenting activity. From again a different view, because EIC is an entrepreneurial funding agency, so we would like to see the radical innovations from the different instruments to reach market adoption at large scale. And this is a view from the lens of a venture capitalist who are looking at the startup activity in green concrete. And you see a lot of activity, a lot of startups in the different areas of, for example, again, raw material sourcing, calcination and clinkerization, mixing, transport and delivery, pouring and curing and logistics. And also energy and process optimization, mixing efficiency and digital efficiency. And I think that's a very interesting view also of the innovation landscape. Again, from the Pathfinder Challenge results, we prefer and we would like to see as EIC, as an entrepreneurial funding agency, that those radical innovations find their adoption in an entrepreneurial journey, possibly supported by the other instruments of EIC, such as Transition and Accelerate. Again, another view on the innovation landscape. This is information from Dealroom, which is an information aggregator, and this is showing the investment in carbon negative cement. And I would highlight, let's say, the second green color, or the second on the stack, which is focusing on sustainable and carbon negative cement, which is the topic area of this Pathfinder Challenge. Now let's move into the Pathfinder Challenge Towards Cement and Concrete as a carbon sink more in detail. So we target overall the scope is decarbonized and carbon negative cement and concrete. There are a couple of important conditions before I jump into the objectives of the challenge. But I think for any innovation in this area, there must be a potential for economical and abundant available feedstock at the place of production and consumption in the future. So what we mean with this is that with the future adoption of the technology, I think already now there should be a view on the availability of the materials that are core to the innovation that is being developed. There must be a potential for scalability and low cost and ease of use, also in developing economies of the innovation. What we mean with this is that it is expected that there's a large growth in the consumption of cement and concrete following the large growth in global floor space of building and infrastructure. But this is not all going to happen in Europe. The main growth is expected in developing economies such as Africa and India, and in a couple of other countries and areas. And therefore, it is important that the radical technologies are also adoptable there where the growth is expected. The third point is that all innovations, at least in concept and principle, at this stage of technology readiness level, should ultimately meet or exceed the norms and standards for cement and concrete. Especially further in the commercial development of the technology and the innovation. So in, for example, supported by other instruments like Transition and Accelerator, it is going to be critical for adoption by customers and by adoption by the market in general, that the innovation and the products resulting from that comply to the standards and norms in the region where the product shall be adopted. I come back to that a little bit later, also in the portfolio considerations. Well, the specific objectives of the Pathfinder Challenge Towards Cement and Concrete as a carbon sink. This is, I guess, the core slide of my presentation. We are looking for 4 specific objectives. I will go through them. The first objective is radical technologies around alternative binder technologies with alternative low carbon compounds based on alternative feedstocks. What we mean with this is that we are looking for more radical innovations that are offering really radical pathways in this overall objective to reach net zero or even carbon negativity of the cement and concrete supply chains. The second objective is more traditional, based on existing supply chains and looking for a more efficient use of clinker in cement, so reduce the clinker fraction, and or cement in concrete, so looking at improving the binary efficiency. So looking into the further commercial adoption and the entrepreneurial journeys, objective number 1 would possibly be more challenging because new technologies with new feedstocks will require new production facilities and new value chains and distribution channels. Then again, it offers the carbon negative value of those technologies. And the second objective could benefit from an entrepreneurial perspective from the existing supply chains and say drop in the technologies in those supply chains and already benefit from the distribution channels that are in place. On the other hand, maybe the potential for decarbonization is more limited than the first objective. The third objective targets process, energy and emission reduction. We know that the emissions from cement and concrete production is roughly 60% comes from chemical CO2 emissions from converting the feedstock, and the other 14% comes from doing so at a very high temperature, which is currently mostly based around burning fossil fuels to create those high temperatures. So in the third objective, we are really looking for to attract alternative processes to create those chemical processes or to create those high temperatures. But the objective is really to reduce or to get to zero of the CO2 emissions related to the process. So objective number 4 is an overarching and cross-cutting objective. And we are looking for enabling radical innovations in enabling technologies in support of objective number 1, 2, and 3. For example, in computational material science, data-driven science, radical innovations in imaging, all for the support and the enhancement of innovations in the first 3 and better understanding of the first 3 objectives. I will come back to those 4 specific objectives later again, because they are also forming the basis of the portfolio consideration. As expected outcomes and impact of the Pathfinder Challenge, we like to reach the proposals to reach tier level 4, so which means a validation in laboratory environment. We also expect to achieve a added value from the collaboration in a portfolio setting. I come back to that later in more detail. We like to see development of common metrics to compare project results, for example by the portfolio stating the decarbonization potential of the portfolio. This is encouraged. We also like to encourage techno-economical views of the future implementation, adoption, scaling and commercialization under realistic conditions. So this is really, even though we are in a very early stage Pathfinder technology readiness, we will already now encourage a realistic view on the adoption of the radical technology in a future market condition. It doesn't mean you have to work out a completely detailed business plan or analysis, but we like to see a realistic view and reflection on that future of the technology. And it's also encouraged that the portfolio would positively contribute to the understanding of the current status and maybe possibly gaps and developments towards industry norms and standards. There is were other presentations by the Pathfinder unit describing the evaluation procedure. This is copied from that presentation, just to reflect once more and once again on what will happen after you submit your proposal. It's basically around a two-step process. Step number 1 is really individual remote phase and individual scoring of the proposals. And a step 2 is really targeting towards the building of a portfolio from different proposals. And this is concluded by a feedback around to yourselves around the results of this process. I will expand a little bit more in those steps. As mentioned in the other presentation, as well as referred to in the work program, we score around 3 elements, which is excellence, impact, and the quality of implementation. These criteria have different weights. You can see the weight of excellence is 60%, impact 20%, and quality of implementation also 20%. But there is also a threshold. Excellent has a threshold of 4 out of 5, impact of 3.5 out of 5, and quality of implementation 3 out of 5. Now in step 2, we will build a portfolio of a number of proposals, and the overarching goal and objective is to extract or create more value from the portfolio together than as individual portfolios. So very simply, 1 + 1 is not 2, but it's going to be more than 2. So to do that, we will map all the proposals above threshold against the main categories, which are the 4 objectives of the challenge. Again, the categories would then be first, alternative binders and processes; second, improve the clinker fraction and binder efficiency; third, would be focusing on energy and emissions reductions associated with that; and fourth is the overarching enabling technologies objective category. Then there are subcategories. These are described in the challenge guide, which is accessible to you as a document. In the next slide, I will display them again, but we will also map all the proposals above threshold against those subcategories. Now then we will build the portfolio of proposals, and our preference is to balance the portfolio towards the first objective domain, and this is really intended to enhance the focus on towards cement and concrete as a carbon sink, because we believe that if we want to embrace this radical notion of cement and concrete as a carbon sink, which would, by the way, have a lot of implications for the business models of the companies operating in the architecture, engineering, construction supply chains, then our feeling is that the first category, so the alternative binders and processes, may possibly be responding mostly to that objective of the carbon sink. So if we look at the subcategories, my most important point here is that the subcategories displayed here are non-exhaustive. But examples are given in the second column, and they belong to the prime categories, which I mentioned before, which reflect the 4 main objectives of the challenge. Again, step 2, portfolio building. It's a stepwise process, and I show this picture because it was demonstrated that this was useful when I showed it to other people in previous discussions. and it was clarifying the concept, at least better, of what we try to achieve. Again, this figure is notional, contains notional numbers, and is really only there to illustrate and explain the process. So basically, after step 1, we would end up with a ranking based on the individual scores, and then we would, for all the above threshold proposals, map these proposals against the categories and the subcategories. And then we would also map all those proposals against shared components and complementarities amongst each other. Because I think that the portfolio is also all about interrelationship and opportunities really to work together to create this more value in a portfolio setting. Now, the cells in the green triangle are opportunities for us to contain value, learning from the proposals where they can interact, or where what they are offering to the portfolio, or where there are complementarities. These are interactions of the, in this case, top ranking proposals. Again, the red line for now is notional. It is not indicating whether we are looking for 10 or less or more proposals. Again, this is just illustrative. We will then also look at lower ranking proposals, which is in the light red box, and their interaction to the higher ranking proposals. Because if we identify gaps in the mapping of the main categories and the subcategories of the higher ranked proposals, we are really scouting and looking in the lower ranking proposals whether there's an added value of including those lower ranking portfolios still in the portfolio that is ultimately decided upon. Now there's also this blue triangle. We'll also look into that. But having said that, these are the lower ranking proposals, and these interactions in all practicality are less likely to be moved up into the ranking order of the portfolio. Based on this, we will end up with a final proposed ranking based on the portfolio considerations. And then, of course, we would like to fund all the proposals above threshold, but we have to draw a line for the available budget of this Pathfinder Challenge. That's notionally here the red line, but depending on, it can also be less proposals or more even. So important for the portfolio activity is that there will be portfolio activities. In fact, each proposal has to reserve a work package with 10 person months for portfolio activities to really activate on this working together and adding value together to as a portfolio. Now the next 3 slides, I will give a couple of examples of notional portfolio activities. For example, here I will focus on portfolio activities around technology generically. So, for example, the collaboration and interaction of the selected portfolio of projects is expected to further enhance their contribution to a reduction of carbon emissions of the cement and concrete supply chains. Therefore, integrative portfolio activities are encouraged that results in collective insights amongst the projects, or quantitatively stating the optimized decarbonization potential of all projects combined. So meaning if the projects work together as a portfolio, it's encouraged that a joint discussion and a joint development of common metrics will result in a joint statement of what would happen if all the technologies proposed in this portfolio would be activated. What is then the potential of carbon reduction? But it could also, for example, be access to open innovation beds and other research infrastructure that is distributed and available possibly within portfolio projects. Other notional portfolio activities, for example, around regulation. I just read out the text. It is the text of the work program. Innovations that offer benefits of CO2 emission reduction shall still enable, meet or exceed the performance and workability criteria of the incumbent products. They enhance or substitute by the time of market adoptions, as referenced by the various norms and standards. It is expected that the collective networks and interactions of the portfolio projects will positively contribute to this understanding. Portfolio activities that support, inform, participate in discussions around or identifying gaps in ongoing legislative processes, for example, by the development of standards, both for the construction sector and for the EU market, are encouraged. What we mean with this is really that when portfolio projects work together, we think that this joint discussion, this joint analysis around these topic areas of legislative processes and the development or the current status of norms and standards is highly beneficial and adding more value than a single project doing this alone. And of course, in a portfolio setting for the EIC, it's possible that the joint portfolio will engage with the people of the European Commission that prepare policies or prepare legislation, and in order to express the need and express also the research status of the radical technologies that are being developed. The last slide on notional portfolio activities, for example, around innovation. Again, EIC is an entrepreneurial funding agency. We hope that radical technologies in the Pathfinder Challenge will find their way into entrepreneurial journeys and wider market adoption. So, portfolio activities developing techno-economical views on the future implementation, adoption and scaling potential of the various technologies in realistic, real-world conditions, coupled with the view on entrepreneurial paths towards future commercialization, are strongly encouraged. Realistic expectation of operational conditions in those markets where future growth is expected most is critical for the adoption of innovative deep tech cement and concrete technologies at significant scale and impact. Now, we realize that the radical technologies that are being developed and worked on in the Pathfinder Challenge are a very early stage. But then again, it's important that there is an understanding of what it entails to further develop those technologies in a commercial setting. And we think that by collaborating in a portfolio setting, by sharing thoughts and ideas and information and data around those challenges, that a added value from a joint activity around these further innovation challenges and maybe access to network partners is desirable. But maybe also joining efforts around market analyses and stakeholder mappings and combining them with the portfolio is also adding value as a joint knowledge base. To close off this Pathfinder Challenge Towards Cement and Concrete as a Carbon Sink, it's part of the work program 2024. It has an indicative budget of 24 million for the whole portfolio. The cutoff date is 16 October 2024 at 5 o'clock Brussels local time. It is expected to attract up to 4 million euro per proposal at a 100% funding rate. This was addressed more in the general presentation around application of Pathfinder challenges, and I refer to that presentation as well. It's strongly advised to include a work package dedicated to portfolio activities of at least 10 person month. And it's also important in the process of applying for the Pathfinder Challenge that you do get in touch with your NCP, your National Contact Point. These are really people that are very knowledgeable about the Pathfinder program as well as the Pathfinder challenges. They should be able to ask most, if not the majority of all questions. If they do not find the answer or don't have the answer, they will find it with us at the EIC. But really one objective of this structure with the NCP is also a wider dissemination of all the questions and answers to the wider audience, so everybody then has access to all the questions and answers in the process. And with that, thank you very much, and well, I hope you all, of course, apply for the Pathfinder Challenge Towards Cement and Concrete as a carbon sink, and I wish you good luck.